Hey friends, it's Just the Gems, I'm Brandon, and it seems like we've been waiting for this game forever, but really it hasn't been all that long. It just always looked so incredible that I think it made the wait feel excruciating. Well, it's finally here, and while I'm only a few hours in, I have some thoughts that I think might help you make a purchasing decision if you're on the fence. Thanks to the publisher for providing the code. Let's get into exactly why Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a masterclass in how to start a story. There's a storytelling technique known as in media res. It translates to in the middle of things, and it is almost always the very best way to begin a story. And it's literally what it says, starting a story right in the middle of the action. There are characters in the world, and they have existing relationships with each other, some that you can tell are going to be very important. The world itself is lived in, and depending on the type of story, you might not fully understand what's going on in it, what the people are doing, or what their customs are. And the grand plot is still a mystery. You're dropped in with no context and asked to observe. Stories that begin with heavy-handed narration might seem more friendly than in media res in some ways. After all, the writer is doing their best to make sure nobody feels left out or like they're missing something. But what that sort of beginning actually shows is that the writer either A, doesn't trust the audience to pick up the subtleties of the story being told, or B, doesn't trust him or herself to be able to tell the story in a way that will allow people to follow it without a bodiless narrator spelling it out. I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about what Clair Obscur isn't, though. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 begins with haunting imagery and beautiful music. We move through what looks to have been a city at one point, but it's twisted almost beyond recognition. Then we move into what might be a garden. In the foreground, we see flowers, plants, a whole bunch of natural beauty. But in the background, somewhat out of focus, there's what appears to be a big slab of rock with the number 34 glowing on it. This juxtaposition immediately puts us off balance. We recognize the natural beauty, that's comfortable imagery, it feels safe. The weird, ominous number glowing in the distance does just the opposite. It makes us dizzy trying to reconcile the two images in our minds. A man is standing there looking out at the number. This is Gustav. Pretty soon, a young woman named Mael shows up, and they do a little bit of bantering. Throughout their conversation, the dialogue feels natural and easy. These are two people who know each other really well. They keep things pretty surface level in the beginning. It's clear there's something heavy going on, but neither one of them dives straight into that, just like most people in real life would delay dealing with unpleasant things. Now, if this were a lesser story and had somehow avoided using heavy-handed narration to start things off, it might now be tempted to ham-fistedly cram some exposition into this conversation. The thing is, though, that we do actually learn about the world and the characters and the story through this conversation. We learn about an upcoming expedition and that there might be more interest in it than Gustav initially thought. We learn that there were previous expeditions and that they didn't go well. And we learn that Gustav is about to lose someone he loves. It's the day of Sophie's gommage, a word which you might understand if you speak French, but I did not, so I had to look it up. It means to erase or rub out. But all of this is conveyed without having to be super heavy-handed about it. It just comes out naturally, right? It just comes out naturally in the dialogue. I don't want to go into spoiler territory, even though I'm literally talking about just the prologue to the game, but it's definitely best experienced yourself, so I'll leave the specifics at that. You have one of those run-and talks then that modern games like to use to combine traversal and character development. Not my favorite game mechanic, to be honest, but almost every big modern game does it, so I can't fault Clair Obscur for doing the same. Mael decides to challenge Gustav to a duel since he's so stiff, and now we get introduced to the battle system. It's an effective way of teaching the player in a way that doesn't feel super video gamey. What follows are a bunch of emotional sequences that, again, I'm gonna leave the details vague. Eventually, Gustav finds himself at a party where he's free to roam around and chat with people. One of them challenges Gustav to a game of trivia, which admittedly feels a little cheesy and out of place among all the very serious goings-on all around. But the thing that I found most interesting is this. Gustav is asked several questions about the world and history, and I thought, oh great, if they make me choose an answer, I'm gonna just have to guess, aren't I? Because there's no way I could know the answers, not yet. After all, the game hasn't been hand-feeding me information like so many games would. But what really surprised me was that I could answer all the questions. Just from witnessing the conversations that had taken place so far, I had internalized a lot of lore without even realizing I was doing it. The characters never felt like they were lore dumping, but I was still getting it. This is what I mean when I talk about Clair Obscur being a masterclass in how to start a story. It's entirely possible to misuse in media res to drop someone in the middle of a story and not effectively communicate the important points. That's how you end up with stories that people find confusing or obtuse or frustrating. So simply using in media res as a tool isn't enough. Clair Obscur is able to handle this all so effectively that I'm honestly kind of blown away. Of course, I realize there's still a lot of game left. There's no guarantee for me at this point that they'll stick the landing. But based on how the game begins, on how expertly the storytellers have managed to create a cool and creepy and compelling world in such a subtle and controlled way, I'm optimistic this will end up being a game to remember. So, if you're in the least bit interested, I do think you should pick this one up. The combat is fun and actually requires quite a bit of skill despite being turn-based. There's also an easy mode if you want. The graphics are beautiful, the music is just absolutely gorgeous. The characters are all really great so far, and the performances are seriously next level. I still have a hard time believing this was made by a small independent team. It's just jaw-droppingly good so far. Anyway, that'll do it for me, at least for the time being. I want to get back and play some more of this, so if you wouldn't mind liking the video and maybe subscribing if you're so inclined, I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye.